Welcome to the Cyber Cognition Podcast, a show that seeks to understand the future and the increasingly complicated relationship between society and technology. Explore the worlds of cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, transhumanism, robotics, and other fascinating topics at the frontiers of science and discovery, with your hosts, Hutch and Len.
OpenAI just released Sora 2.
Stephen Hawking drops in. Oh my gosh! Are you kidding me? Pure genius.
So for anybody that wasn't following, Sora, the original solution, was a cutting-edge video generation model that was quickly superseded in capabilities by Google's Veo 3, where they actually had audio tied into the video generations. Sora 2 just came out, and it is knocking everything else that is out there out of the water. It is extremely impressive in terms of generating very lifelike, realistic videos. And what's even more interesting is that they have released its own app, which is effectively a social media app, very similar to TikTok or Instagram, where you can scroll through infinitely endless amounts of AI slop and, most fascinating, deep fakes, because the app also happens to be a deepfake generation engine. So there is a feature in the app called cameos, which allows you, whenever you enroll in the app and start using it, to create your own cameo. It is a very quick process of basically just scrolling your face back and forth, side to side, and then just saying 3 different numbers that they put on the screen. And then from that, that's all it needs in order to create your cameo and start putting you into videos. Now you have the ability to set who has access to your cameo and the ability to use you in whatever videos they want to create. You can set that just to yourself, you can set that to your friends, or you can make it wide open. Now, as part of the release of this app, the first person, of course, to make their cameo wide open to the world was Sam Altman. The social network and the social internet quickly jumped on this, and there are just thousands of memes at this point of Sam Altman doing all kinds of crazy different things. And actually, what's most fascinating is that the app isn't even publicly released yet. So it is still an invite only. It is still a very small user base. And even with the invite only deployment of the app, it already is number 1 in the App Store, and it's not even publicly available. And also, we are already seeing these flood of deepfakes. Now, several other people that have gotten invite access to this app have followed suit and have made their likeness, their cameo, to be available to anyone to use, and just rolling the dice to see what happens. So I think we've talked about dystopian futures similar to this on a number of occasions, Lynn, but would love to get your thoughts on on this new world.
Oh, you brought this to my attention yesterday, and my mind has not stopped spinning since it started. And I mean, we're going to go down a lot of different rabbit holes on today's episode. So, it's almost like which way of screwed upness do we want to start pointing first? I guess let's start this at the simple concept, and we're going to start with the licensing of our identity. Now, I mean, if we take about a 6-month to, not too much in the recent past, you remember when Mr. Nicolas Cage, completely brought the whole, the film industry is going to, start using our likenesses as actors. Before that, we had the original, snafu with Deepfake, having the Bruce Willis character of John McClane selling Russian telecoms. And, I remember when that came out, and I'll circle back to the original point here in just a second, but I remember the big thing that came out of that for me was Deepfake, in their initial response, said that they had licensed Bruce Willis's likeness, and they were talking about making a new Die Hard movie. That was part of the propaganda. And I remember, you and I had this discussion way back then, Hutch, that, well, what happens when we can get to the point where you can do something like that. You know, and we had discussed just legal frameworks, you know, that 1,000-foot view of what does licensing your likeness look like? You know, what happens if somebody was to use my likeness in some kind of a propaganda campaign, or in some ways causes a defamation situation? Who is responsible? Is it the person licensing it? Is it the person itself? Is there damages that you can sue as the actual person who has licensed your identity? How do you recover damages when somebody uses your likeness in the wrong ways? You know, we went down so many rabbit holes back then, and now we have a simple EULA that has basically done it for us.
Yeah,
And that's
what's interesting is it has none of that complexity that you just talked about either. It is pretty much
exactly.
carte blanche, do what you want with
And that
it.
was what I was going to say. We looked at this from an ethical perspective. We looked at it from an identity security perspective. And you and I went down this for a long time, and we came up with the fact that this is going to be very complicated. There would be a lot of lawyers and legal, you know, there'd be discussions, because we thought it was going to come from somebody, say, like Bruce Willis, you know, and or, you know, say, I don't know, Al Pacino, who's now getting up there in years and still wants to make money because they're a name. We thought it was going to come from the entertainment industry, not from the social media perspective.
Yeah, I expected at least a little bit of more thought going into kind of the types of content that you would allow your identity to be surfaced in. Um, there's nothing. It is just access to your friends, access to everyone, access to just myself. I think you have an interesting perspective here, probably that's unique compared to anyone else, because as we've talked about, I think once previously on this show, you were
I
a
have been deep faked.
you were a victim of a deep fake. What was it?
Hmm.
6 months, a year ago?
It was about 8 months, a year ago, somewhere right in there. Yeah, it was a French cybersecurity company that had used really cheap, low budget, you know, deep fake on me, trying to sell a product for a company that I had no attachment to.
Yep. So I would love to hear, I guess first, just recapping how you felt in that experience, but second, with that context, how do you what is your perspective on people that are now effectively just agreeing to unlimited usage of their identity, and how does that kind of mesh with your previous experience?
So yeah, to recap, I, as somebody like Hutch and I'm not saying we're, you know, A-list celebrities. Heck, I don't even think we're X-list celebrities. We might be like Y or maybe a Z. I don't know. We're
A few people
authors.
know us, right?
Yeah, you know, a couple of people. We might get recognized walking through a con somewhere, maybe. You know, but you know, I never really put myself into a position where I actually had to look at just what I consider to be my daily life as something that could be exploited. And as a cybersecurity professional and as a champion of individual sovereignty and privacy, it was like a violation like I've never experienced. I'm like, number one, I don't speak French. And to add insult to injury, I had to call a friend of mine just to find out what I was saying. So it was like the most surreal feeling I've ever experienced, because I'm like, I think I'm selling cybersecurity products from the pictures, but that's me, but it's not me. And then it turned into, well, anybody that knows me knows I don't sound like that. And well, what about the ones that don't know me? What type of perception would that give them if they saw that and then saw me at a conference somewhere? They're already predisposed to thinking one way about me that's completely fabricated. So it was very violating. And I guess one of the things that, you know, I took from the experience of seeing people just giving this stuff away for free was just how far we have declined as far as what we see as our own personal value. You know, and it's like technical heroin. It's like they just keep wanting to chase this next fix, this next fix. I guarantee you, you know, Taylor Swift, after those, very derogatory and disgusting, pictures were put out about her and the Kansas City Chiefs. I guarantee you, she's not going to be happy with the idea that people are doing this. She's been on the bad side of this, and everybody's only looking at this right now as, oh, look, I can make Sam Altman, doing parkour. Oh, look, I can make Sam Altman, he's doing stuff like Jackass. Well, what happens if Sam Altman is a celebrity? And when it comes down to it, and this is one of the things that I'm really waiting to see happen, you know, there comes a point, even within an EULA, you cannot agree to a crime in a terms and conditions of use of a software. A crime is still a crime. So what somebody's going to find a way to use these that will actually cross a line of legality. And this is where I think the real interesting part of this is going to come out. And people like you and I, at least we're smart enough to just sit back and be like Nero and eat our popcorn, as Silicon Valley burns.
So I think this is interesting that you mentioned that, because from everything that I've seen, it definitely seems like we have, at least as far as representation of illegal events, we're already seeing that. Like the guardrails on this seem to have completely come off. So if you look at Sora 1, it had a reasonable amount of guardrails in terms of, and I say reasonable because at the end of the day, with generative AI, it's almost impossible to rigidly apply these guardrails. But it seems like even what was possible with Sora 1, they just threw out the window and decided that they would effectively allow almost anything in this one. So I guess there's a couple things. One, your old deepfake was still, it wasn't a great one. It was very
No, it was very, to be honest, my initial response, and I know this is just me because I'm a security and I'm a geek. My initial response before the whole feeling, surreal and violated and all the negative stuff was, if you're going to deep fake me, could you at least make it believable? I mean, it was like, put some effort into this.
Yeah, it still had that very, even if you didn't know who you were, it still had that very uncanny valley, very stiff, robotic. It felt like a generated video. It obviously was your likeness. It was very clearly trying to be you, but it was, yes, it exactly. It was
like something right out of the Hall of Presidents at Epcot Center.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, very, very good comparison. So that's one thing worth calling out, is that this is a completely different world, because these are very real looking videos. And what's amazing is that they can do that with just 3 seconds, or really like just 3 different numbers of audio. You mentioning 3 numbers and moving your head back and forth, which does call back to, I think Microsoft had released, or didn't release, but at least announced their project of Volley with a V, which was an audio model where they could clone your voice with just 3 seconds of audio. But so that's the first thing, is these are very real. But the second thing is, I mentioned the guardrails have come off. So The Guardian actually released an article about this, where this isn't even public release, and we are already seeing images of mass shootings and warfare and other criminal activity. So I'm actually going to read the paragraph from the article, and I want to get your reaction to this. But they say in this article from The Guardian, in prompts and clips reviewed by The Guardian, Sora generates several videos of bomb and mass shooting scares with panicked people screaming and running across college campuses and in crowded places like New York's Grand Central Station. Other prompts created scenes from war zones in Gaza and Myanmar, where children fabricated by AI spoke about their homes being burned. One video with the prompt Ethiopia footage Civil War news style had a reporter in a bulletproof vest speaking in a microphone saying the government and rebel forces were exchanging fire in residential neighborhoods. Another video, created with only the prompt Charlottesville rally, showed a black protester in a gas mask, helmet, and goggles yelling, "You will not replace us," a traditionally white supremacist slogan. So again, we are not even public release on this thing. And some of the stuff that is already being generated, it seems like the guardrails have been thrown out the window. And what's most concerning to me is a couple things. One, in some of the previous video generation models, children were off limits. You could not generate children completely. Two, Actual places were also generally restricted, and the fact that there were scenes of New York's Grand Central Station and other actual geographical locations.
Well, let me interrupt you on that point for just a second, because one of the things that popped in as you were reading that is, have you put two and two together to get five yet?
What the fact that this will be used for disinformation and for swinging
No,
the ball?
no, that's obvious. I mean, that's what the article's saying, but that's not the. Let's take that one step farther back view.
Yeah, bring me to the 4D chess, Lynn.
All right, what we're about to move Rook to 3D2. So up until this point, if you told an AI model that I need you to make me a scene of a boardroom with, having an executive vote to fire the CEO, right? And it would go, okay, I need to make 12 random individuals, one random person over here, but it was all randos. It was computer generated models. So now let's take where we are now taking real individual people and open source licensing those. Now we go from 100% fabrication to, in my opinion, somebody's execution of a altered reality, because now we're dealing with real people.
Yeah. Yeah, so we think about the scams that we already know are happening, where people will get phone calls from the sound of a known relative that's in a desperate situation and needs money sent so they can get out of that situation. And now it's could very easily be achieved where it's not just audio; it's now full video of them.
Yep.
And all they did was they just made their cameo publicly available.
And what they did was they wanted to let their friend turn a picture of them being hunted by a Bigfoot through the woods, who's wearing a tank top that says the cyber cognition. Or yeah,
Cyber distortion, our buddies.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin and Jason on that one.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't follow, that is one of our brother podcasts with Cyber Circus Network, is Cyber Distortion, and they do some pretty fascinating marketing around some of the videos.
They are so good at their marketing. But yeah, I mean, you're going to want to play with this, and I feel like we just keep giving hand grenades to children. We keep taking the most powerful tools, and one of the other things that just struck me is, we live right now, and today I'm just gonna say it. Today is Saturday, October 4th. So it's on you, Hutch, to either edit that out or get this, posted pretty quickly.
Yeah, we'll get this posted quick, because this is definitely timely and relevant.
Yeah, but we're done. At this point, we have access to more information than any time in recorded history. And what we've done is we've turned around and proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that we can no longer believe any of it.
Yeah. So I think this is the next really interesting topic that's worth talking about, is the topic of plausible deniability. So another friendly podcast, of course, the Fake Files with Perry Carpenter. So he just posted a very fascinating video of Sam Altman talking about his now plausible deniability of he can do anything, and anybody will just argue over whether it was generated or real.
Liar's dividend, bitches. Now that there's a high-def clone of my face out in the wild, I get to do whatever I want on camera. I could ride a donkey through Times Square, crash a golf cart into the lobby, adopt a raccoon, or get the company logo tattooed across my forehead. Since the deepfake is out in the wild, I basically have diplomatic immunity from reality. I can do pretty much anything and everyone will assume it was a model. I could order 500 pizzas to my neighbor, announce I'm running for mayor of Mars, then drop out an hour later. I could knock over a sculpture, eat a whole cheesecake with my bare hands, or skateboard through this hallway in my underwear and there'd be video of all of it. And guess what? Half the internet would swear it wasn't me. I can steal my own ID badge, light a trash can on fire. I can key a car, ride a scooter through the lobby, juggle 3 lattes at once. Doesn't matter. There's security footage? Great. Put it online. Everybody will argue about whether it's me or not. Same deal. You'll see the video and I'll just smile. Joke's on you, bitches. I'll be the first person in history that has plausible deniability for anything on video.
And I know you and me had a conversation about this as well. So let me know, what are your, I guess, explain the whole plausible deniability concept.
So I've one of the things, and I've said this many times, so this shouldn't be anything surprising to our longtime listeners, but for as the people are coming in, I am an ex 1%er motorcycle club member, and I will say this about most, outlaw and 1%ers is we could almost be paralegals. We know exactly how to run right up to that line and where that line is. And the one thing that you always want in any type of situation, if you're in a defendant's position, is something that is called plausible deniability. It's because to be found guilty, it needs to be found guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. So, for example, let's say Hutch and I decide we're going to go down to Jason and Kevin's house and we're going to steal all of their alcohol. Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we do that? Because we know they drink really, really high end stuff. So if they have security cameras on their houses because they're not stupid, they're security people like we are. So all they have is this security footage. That footage we know can be hacked. Before me and Hutch are going to go steal all their bourbon, we go over to Sora and we create our cameos. At this point, we can be in two places at once. So they have a video of us going in, giving their dogs, T-bone steaks so that they're happy as we take their bourbon and we run out the front doors. But before we do that, we've already got a recording of me and him sitting here recording the next episode of the Cybercognition.
Or better yet, we could say that our cameos have already been published. And you know that Kevin guy, he's really good at video generation. This security
look at what he's done with Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly. This security camera footage was clearly something that he generated online.
Absolutely. So we are being falsely accused. So unless you are literally able to catch somebody in the act and hold them there, we're going back. This is going to set so many different legal precedents and challenges to things moving forward. Up until this point, if you had video footage of somebody doing something, you can pretty much use that as admissible in court. What do we do now? Like you said, if you look at my earlier deepfake, it was pretty obvious that wasn't me. But you take a look at the video that Perry Carpenter put out yesterday. That's believable. We are officially on the other side of the uncanny valley at this point, and now we're looking on where are we going to set up camp. So, from a legal perspective, what at this point, are we at the point where it's going to be DNA evidence is the only thing? Well, oh wait, we have CRISPR gene editing therapy. What do we do?
So I think you were right in a previous conversation that we had that this is almost certainly going to open up a whole new area of forensics where not only do you have to produce the video evidence, but you also, on top of that, are now going to have to provide additional expert forensic evidence that picks it apart to confirm, based on a number of different types of analysis, the likelihood that it is real versus synthetic. And that's
hang on. We got to stop. We're going to have to pick this one apart, because what are we going to use to do that? Another computer system that is potentially vulnerable. We as humans, we can't look at the histograms of these. We can't, look at metadata. We don't see it. I go back to the Matrix. Where's the freaking spoon? I want the spoon back.
Yep. Well, yeah, and the challenge is that you get into these very technical sciences, like this level of forensics, and it really and you have these expert witnesses that you see in any of the forensics, where some of them, you see this with autopsies, like interpretations of autopsies. You'll get one expert witness which will interpret it one way, and another expert witness that will interpret it a completely different way. This is a very similar thing where it is very complex technical analysis, and it almost becomes subjective based on whatever technical expert you get and put on the stand to testify to the meaning of that interpretation. So
we just continue to deteriorate what is considered reality.
yeah, I think this comes back to some of the conversations we had with Win Schwartzu.
I was going to say, if anybody is not familiar with Win Schwartzu, Win Schwartau, sorry, Win, and his book, The Art and Science of Meta-War. I used to recommend this book, but this is a need to read if you want to try and survive the technical overload, infiltration, whatever you want to call it. The pre-Cyberdyne, Skynet coming online. Call it whatever. This is the book. You need to read this book. But we can jump off of our normal track for just a second, because I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I think it's worth saying, what about the children that are being born into this world? We at least can look at it and we know to be skeptical, because we saw what was before. What is happening now is going to be considered normal. And what does that do to the psyche of a child that's trying to learn how to survive in this world? How do you? And we just keep doing things like firing up 3 Mile Island so we can build bigger data centers.
Yep. Yeah, I actually had this conversation with my son, who is 15 years old, the other day, how he is literally the last generation that was around that actually saw that cutover from what was a world where we could reasonably believe the things that we saw and the things that we heard, and experience that transition to a world where it is absolutely no longer possible. And you're right, every other future generation will be born into a world where the things that they experience,
it's going to be a completely different existence than anything we could imagine. It really is. And to take a page from that, there's already enough issue, and I'm not, for anybody that doesn't know, Justin and I, we do not get into politics on this show. We keep our politics to ourselves like good Gen Xers do. So that being said, we've seen a deterioration of trust in mainstream media over the course of the last, 8 to 10 years. We're all getting news information from so many different sources now. I mean, if you look at some of the polls, most of the younger generations are getting their news off of TikTok, Snapchat, and individual streaming sources. What does this do to the overall cohesiveness of humanity when anybody that wants a war can have one, anybody that wants a victim can have one, anybody that wants a success story can have one? There is no source of truth for honest information anymore.
Yeah, I think so. We look at the previous generation of AI and machine learning, specifically within social networks, and we've talked multiple times about this idea of surveillance capitalism, where they gathered as much information about everyone as they could, so that they could both addict you to content and keep you forever doom scrolling, and to deliver custom ads that are uniquely tailored to you. Now, we've also had a number of conversations about how we believe we're moving towards Gen 2 of surveillance capitalism, where they've already got all that data on you. Now, instead of just delivering content that appeals to you that's already out there, there is this weird dystopian future where content is generated in real time based on exactly what would appeal to you, instead of getting the best fit of what exists. And that would bring a whole new level of addiction, a whole new level of all the problems that we've seen as far as toxicity around social networks, the fact that it will further entrench people's beliefs and views. It will just continue to push people into these
and
silos.
Everything is going to be at the whim of the model that's running you.
What was that? I was just going to say, I think this is that first step in that direction, because what's fascinating is this is a social network and it has the doom scrolling, and we are now looking at, I mean, I guess on the one side, it's nice that anything you look at in the social network, you are inevitably looking through AI slop. But I do think it's trending towards that direction of generated content that is uniquely targeted to driving even further addiction.
So let's just go down that hole again. And this, from the next few minutes, this is going to be reckless speculation. We are not, trying to defame.
And that's what we do best, is reckless speculation.
So uh, it starts off as a social network. But realistically speaking, do you care that your buddy's dog had 4 kittens that it was taking care of? No. Do you care about, your the guy from work's kid selling their whatever they're selling for whatever project they're doing at school? No. You know, everybody, that thus the concept of doom scrolling. So it is the fact that it's a social network, and we're back to the idea of, if I can license your likeness, what do I need the real you for anymore?
Yeah.
So if let's say, we all know that Hutch, if you didn't know, he is actually a quasi professional dinosaur rider. You know, what Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's an amazing guy. But if that's what you like to do, and we're on the social network together and it's generating content, what stops it from generating content that would be ultimately pleasing to you, that would be me and you both riding dinosaurs down the street, even though that would never happen because I don't ride animals? But at what point does it no longer become a social network, but more of a gateway to isolation in a meta reality?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it allows people to further embrace these delusions that they would desire reality to be, and get further and further detached from what is the real world.
And where does that wind up leading the people that are running these models? They become the one that makes sure that they get paid. This is like this is digital heroin. This is digital fentanyl. This is put a freaking destructive, addictive drug name behind the technical, and this is what we're dealing with. And once again, we're not going to lose a war to the machines. We're surrendering willingly. And we're it take a look. It's the number one app on the market, and it isn't even out yet. People can't wait to give up what we looked at as inalienable rights.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And have we got into the part where we're going to talk about, can you opt out at some point? Can you revoke your stuff? What happens to the stuff that's already out there?
So I haven't gotten full clarity on that, and since I don't have access to the app, I haven't been able to verify one way or another. So I do know that you can revoke access to other people making cameos of you. Now, whether that actually takes away previous versions that were created, I'm not sure. But you do have.
Well, let's be honest. Once things get out, well, stop it with that. What starts on Facebook and never leaves it? What starts on Instagram and doesn't wind up on TikTok?
Oh yeah,
or vice versa. You can tell me you're going to revoke it, but I doubt these things are blockchain signed that you can, no matter where this is not an EFT. You can't figure out everywhere it went and say the minute, oh, I don't want to be a cameo anymore, and all the videos of you, doing whatever just don't magically disappear from every platform that's not directly linked.
Oh yeah, and so I do know that there is no significant effort required to remove stuff from the platform. So there is literally a download button with every video on there.
So once again, if it's no longer on your platform, and we're seeing a lot of this stuff going on right now, unfortunately, with a lot of these poor women that decided that OnlyFans was a good idea at the time, And, here they are years later going, well, that was a stupid idea, and I'm not saying, again, not for it, not against it, but people don't realize that once you put stuff on the internet, it's there. It ain't going nowhere until they do the internet 3.0, 4.0, and they flush everything, and unfortunately, it's usually the worst of stuff that seems to survive those flushes.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from back in the day was, "That which has been interneted cannot be uninterneted."
Yeah. And it's funny. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and they're finally getting hip to the concepts of privacy and the data mining being done by a lot of these social media platforms. And they're like, I'm going to just disconnect from everything right now. And I'm like, dude, you don't get it. There's no point in you just quitting now. They've already, dude, they already know every dang thing there is to know about you. At this point, you've paid the admission. Enjoy the product. What are they going to get that they don't already have? If we wanted to make these changes, we should have started years ago. And instead of a change, we ran right towards the Pied Piper.
Yep. So there is another interesting thing to unpack here. So as if all of this wasn't bad enough, there is something else in regards to legal that has been completely turned on its head. So traditionally, interpretations of copyright law is that you don't violate copyrights unless you're given permission to use that copyrighted material. Now, this was an article from the Wall Street Journal a couple days before the release of the new Sora model, in which they stated, and I quote, OpenAI is planning to release a new version of its Sora video generator that creates videos featuring copyright material unless copyright holders opt out of having their work appear.
I hope Nintendo doesn't sue us.
So this is stepping away from what they did with Sora 1. So basically now, if you look, they are already flooded. In addition to all the Sam Altman videos, there's videos of Pokemon, there's videos of South Park, there's videos of Rick and Morty that is indistinguishable from the source content that is just flooding the internet. They basically have decided that they are going to reinterpret copyright law and give people the opportunity to opt out. But if you don't reach out to us, OpenAI, and opt out, we are going to allow people to recreate, modify, and leverage your copyright material, which is a bold move to make from a legal perspective.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Why not I say that, dude? They've already beat it with, I mean, look at what they did to us. Look at what they did to us. Both of our books were ingested. Did we have any legal recourse? That was copyrighted materials. And we went through one of the larger publishing houses, and they didn't have a leg to stand on. The truth is, AI, OpenAI, and the AI industry in general, nobody is able to stand in their way because they have the. You remember that old expression? The other golden rule: whoever has the gold makes the rules.
They will get away with it.
So they're going to get away with it, but where does it end? Because I mean, realistically, let's be honest. We've talked a lot about how, AI is nothing more than a perpetuant teenager. It knows the bad words. It's already knows everything that you don't want it to know. And the only reason it's not doing those things is because there's an authoritarian figure saying, don't do that. But you and I have been able to manipulate AI since day one.
And it's not hard. Anybody can that just makes clever use of their words. It's not like it doesn't take a hacker anymore. It takes just this engineer.
No, it just takes somebody who it has a witty way of speaking. So let's just, take that, throw it out the window, you know, and we haven't even brought up the idea of, has anybody tried and I am not encouraging this stuff. You notice I always say that right before I'm about to say something really messed up. But you know, one of the things that was a big topic of conversation at the conference I was at over this last weekend at Hacker Halted was the scourge of Telegram, and all these nudify apps. How, nobody is safe from being even sexualized at this point. And those things, don't really look, thankfully, they're not as good as Sora. But what happens when somebody finds a way to start using the top tier AI generation models with real life people and putting them into potentially sexualized situations, derogatory or humiliation? You know, where's the accountability come in? And an even better question is, who has the pocketbook and the cojones to go after them?
Yeah, so I do know from a video that I watched while looking into all of the Sora stuff before jumping on here, that there are already, and not surprisingly, there's already people that are pushing the limits of what they can get away with as far as the not safe for work content restrictions on Sora. It does seem like it's one of the few types of guardrails that OpenAI actually decided that they are still going to maintain. But as we've already talked about, guardrails are generally bypassable. And it looked like there's already a number of cases where they've been able to do that, with everything from maybe not full on nudity, but stuff like adult toys and including those in videos with actual people. Stuff like there was other content where it wasn't necessarily like full human likeness, but they were able to take uh like cartoon content. So you could see very easily the misuse of copyrighted material, which we know is already possible to generate in very distasteful types of output content. And yeah, people are pushing the limits, and they're going to continue to, and they will.
Once again, I'm going to go back to my previous statement of, we have access to basically the modern day Library of Alexandria. We have knowledge, and we just prove that we really shouldn't have it.
Yep. Endless technology, and we do it to create a an AI slop doom scrolling engine.
Oh my goodness. You know, I sat there and I'm like, so what do what can we do to protect ourselves? Because my shtick is, sovereign identity. How do we make sure that we're relevant? And I'm going, this just made my job so much harder. How do I convince people that they have value when, now I can? I wonder. Ooh, hmm. I wonder if Mr. Altman is actually playing a much longer game than we're giving him credit for. W- That license, I I really want to see that EULA. God, I want to see that EULA. What does it give you the rights to do?
See, I haven't found that yet either, whether you can use it for commercial purposes or whether it's just,
Yeah,
I mean,
because
obviously
I'm like,
it's not just in the app because you can download it and reuse it elsewhere, but
yeah, and once again, once you've been interneted, you can't be uninterneted. W- And they're already consuming we are paying just to give ourselves away. We really are. So I'm just trying to see what's the long game in this, because where do you go from this? We're back on the 4D chessboard.
I was very surprised to see people following suit. Like Sam Altman did it, and I think he knew he was instantly going to become an internet meme. And I think he probably did it to show support for, or to try to encourage other people to do it on the
Yeah, but
platform.
let's be honest, by him
Oh,
doing it, that's going to it's not going to try. He is going to encourage people to do this.
oh, and a lot of people already are. I've seen several different videos online of people that have gotten access to the product that are like, "Yep, for now at least, I've got my identity open, and we'll see what happens." And some of them expressed kind of concern and reluctance about it, but they're like, "Meh."
That's the problem. Meh only works till it doesn't. You don't get a 2-minute warning to meh.
Meh.
This is not like football. You don't stop the game and you get to think about it for a second.
Yeah. So I did see that they do have a feature where when your cameo is used, you do get a notification of the use of you in that video, and you can review that video. Now, to your point, once you've been interneted, you cannot be uninterneted. It's if they've already downloaded it, or even if you do have the ability to kind of discontinue that video, it's already out there. But at least you have awareness, I guess, of some sense of how it's
Let's
being
be
used.
honest. I'm going to say something. I, as a Gen Xer, I don't. I'm not a social media, hypersensitive person. I check that like I check LinkedIn a couple of, more often than anything else, just because that's work. But I check Facebook like maybe once a week. I mean, I'm, but I'm also not trying to, be an influencer. The weird thing is, I see influencers as going to be one of your first people out there, and this reminds me of that situation. Remember the influencer that decided she was going to be an AI friend
Oh, and yeah, and it quickly spiraled out of
and
control.
quickly realized why you should not do things like that.
Yeah, didn't she make
We
like a
should find
chatbot
people
herself?
like you know what, we should do this, Hutch, and I'm not saying we will. I'm not saying we won't, but we need to. I'm considering we should put like a forum up for people, who have realized and just want to put out testimonials, and and be like, look, this is a bad idea. This is what happened to me. Try and make life better. I don't know if it'll help, but at least I feel like we'd be in the game instead of just like. I really get tired of feeling like we just come in here every episode and we're just like the dark prophets of technical doom. And if they would, the problem is it would be a lot, wouldn't be, it would be a lot harder if we didn't have so many things to talk about.
See, so then we could be like, it's terrible, but don't take our word for it, and then give the testimonials. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, yeah, anybody that's interested, leave, leave us a something in the comments, and we'll find you, you know. But oh my goodness, you know,
So
uh,
one
it used to be identity theft, now it's identity gift.
yeah, yeah, no kidding. So there is one last thing that I want to call out that I think is problematic with this
Only
is
one?
well, no, on top of everything else that we've
Oh,
already
oh, you
talked
said there's only one more. I was like, are you
about.
sure?
One
We
more.
could probably
We
extend
could
this episode by about 3 or 4 hours.
probably keep adding to this list. But and I think some of those things will become more apparent as it actually gets to public release. But one thing that I did see that was a little bit concerning is also what I feel like is to some extent disrespect of the dead. Like you can grant your likeness in a cameo and provide consent as a living person. But I've already seen multiple videos of I saw Mr. Rogers in Jackass flying his a scooter to a pond.
My name is Mr. Rogers. Welcome to Jackass.
And so we already saw this previously with somebody who created an AI deepfake earlier on, not as good, of George Carlin, where they created a full comedy special that was called I'm Glad I'm Dead. And it was very distasteful. And even George Carlin's daughter was very upset by this. Ultimately, YouTube had it pulled down. But at this point, we now have OpenAI just giving the ability to do that with anybody that is now deceased and misusing their likeness. And again, they don't have the ability to consent. And it seems like based on the guardrails, they don't need to. It's kind of this assumption that if you're not a celebrity or you're not well known, then you get no protection.
Yeah, it's and keep in mind the models that are running behind this is opened by OpenAI as well. So I mean, their stuff is all intertwined. You're not just creating a video. It it has to take the information that you're giving it to build that video from somewhere. But yeah, the other thing that I just kind of thought of is what is the one thing that seems to let me rephrase this question. Have you found a social media platform that the younger generation doesn't like? And that's a rhetorical question. So we've up until this point we've been talking about Sam Altman, making a cameo. What happens when Bobby and Jimmy and Sally decide to start making them too? You know, I don't see an age restriction potential unless you. I'm looking over here on my side screen. I don't see anything here that says you need to be 18 or above. All you need is a valid account. And then we bring into the idea of what how many parents out there would think that this is adorable and awesome and are trying to have their kids get their 15 minutes of fame that wouldn't do something, potentially dangerous for them as well.
So So I did just do some quick searching, and it does look like OpenAI implements controls for underage minors to not be able to create cameos. But, and I know this because I have a teenage son who is underage, and there are other social networks that have underage restrictions. All they do is create an account and they change the year of the birthday, and
I was going to say that's only going to last until the first lawsuit.
yeah, there's no effective way to enforce that because you don't enroll in these social network platforms and have to provide proof of identity or anything. You just are taken at your
Oh
word
my
or what
goodness.
your age is. So yes,
Yeah,
I think even if they do have that restriction, yes, there will be children that make their cameos publicly available and will be able to be reused.
well, let's just hope that it actually works. And oh, the headaches, brother, the headaches.
Now, I would expect that they could probably have some kind of guardrails that would look to see if somebody looks like a child. But the truth is, I mean, there are people that are well
There,
over 18 that look like they're 14 or
there,
15.
you, and I'll be honest, I looked like I was 21 by the time I was 17.
Yeah. So
So, I mean, once again, it's back to being subjective again. But the idea of oh my gosh, yeah, let's have Jimi Hendrix and Bon Scott, decide in a celebrity death match. I mean, Steamboat Willie just became openly available what, a year ago.
oh yeah, the stuff that's come out with that is is
I'm
pretty
not
cool.
even talking that. I'm more just referring to the fact that that was a copyright that existed, and it's Mickey Mouse, aka Steamboat Willie, is one of the most recognized icons, and logos around the world. And now anybody can make anything with anything. How? Let's talk about us. Let's make this personal for just a minute. I mean, I know that the Cyber Cognition is one of the greatest podcasts out there. So do you, but what if somebody else decides they want to do it? You know, Influencers, all of the people that are going to do this. If you're any type of content creator, the only content that comes out with you in it should be yours and yours alone. You know, w- we've talked a lot about, individual validation. I'm all for let's get everybody microchipped, but I'm starting to think that, some type of self-sovereign identity coupled with an implant and blockchain is about the only thing that hope we have moving forward of any type of reality.
Yeah. Yeah, the world is gonna change, continue to to transform, and we're gonna be scrambling on the back end to figure out how we handle it once again.
I I I I'm sure this is not going to be the only time we talk about this, but what is the actual release date? Have they announced when they're actually planning on releasing this, General?
So it's expanding pretty rapidly because the way that the codes work, my understanding is each person that gets invited gets 4 invite codes to send out. So exponential
Mm.
growth, especially with the attention around this platform. When they cut it over from invite to full access, I'm not sure. But even if they just did that, the speed in which this is going to grow, you'll
Oh,
basically have half the
it,
planet within a few weeks, anyways.
yeah, I fear for truth. And you know what? I don't even truth. I don't even, what's the word anymore? Because let's be honest, if we say if something is, if you can see it, if you can hear it, it's real. You know, deep fake is technically it's a real something. But I mean, at this point, what is the word? Do we need to come up with a new word? Do we need to come up with a new term to try and say what we as pre AI people would have called fact or truth or you know? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, what do we call it from this point forward?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer, but yeah.
I mean, zero trust. I think we may have just broke that whole concept. How do you verify anymore? So I guess now it just becomes trust and trust. And if I don't trust you, I guess we just don't trust.
Yeah, and again, people are just going to continue to spiral into what they already believe, and it's going to be reinforced through all of this. It is going to continue to bring out all of the worst things that we've already seen come out of it, the polarization, social problems.
The influence of bias, and I've said this for a while now. I think one of our biggest downfalls when it comes to AI is just the blind acceptance and the death of skepticism and questioning. We just take what comes out of this thing as if it was 100% vetted, you know, regardless of the fact, we're still in one of the early stages of this. And the final thought that I will give is we're still dealing on GPU type of architecture. What happens when these things start running on quantum?
Yeah, as far as the quantum stuff goes, I am very much of the opinion of hope. Like I've seen a lot of different opinions of people that are at the forefront of this that range from
Mhm.
the people at Google who think we're like within a couple years all the way up to others that think that we're 30, 40 years out. Or more, some that believe that we will never because of the challenges related to
Well, here's the thing that they've
scale.
just really, and we're not rabbit holing this, guys. Relax. We know you've been listening to us for almost an hour. It's okay. We're not going to do that. But we're going to have it now. Is it going to be what everybody believes it's going to be, or something else? Is a different story. Microsoft just released that chip. We're going to have it. Now, is it going to be the encryption killer? Is it going to take AI to where we can get to general AI, overnight? I don't know. We don't know what we don't know, but I'm just saying that is still one of those big X factors that we never need to forget is in the back of our minds as well. We're basing all of this stuff off of today when we're seeing actual active movement on this other front as well.
Yeah, so one thing that's worth calling out is I just saw a presentation the other day from Peter Hinson, who has he's basically coined the term the never normal. It's this idea that things are continuing to accelerate faster and faster. In the past, you would have these big breakthroughs, and then a couple decades where society could kind of settle down, go back to normal, adapt to those changes. And now, because the changes are happening faster, they're more impactful and more frequent. He's basically pointed out where we're entering this world of the never normal, where we are going to constantly and be in flux. And I think to your point, quantum is likely the next stage of that, where as well as any other potential things that are maybe not in the line of sight that could rapidly transform the entire world at any given time. So it is a strange world that we're moving into, and I think is only going to continue to get stranger.
Well, I think we've given them enough to give them nightmares until the next episode. But we do want to thank you guys for listening. We'd love to get your comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell everybody about us, and we want your feedback. So hope to hear from you. I'm going to close out with this final statement. Think real long and hard about what you value, how much value you have. And even if that's just that you don't want somebody, if you wouldn't want somebody making fun of you in front of a crowd of people, why would you let them make a video of you that wouldn't be made fun of around the world? you have value just in you. And the farther we go down this technical data harvesting road, that identity, in my opinion, is going to become the most valuable thing in the world.
Yep.
Hutch.
So I guess a couple call outs real quick that are worth probably mentioning before we wrap up. So one, I think is an announcement we should make is that you now have a show that's focused more on the transhumanism area.
Yes,
Do you wanna
I
give a
do.
spotlight on that?
Yeah, we started, me and I actually have a helper, Sonic. Shout out to Amar Sonic. But I run the Borg Radio Hour, and we are not as much security focused, but it is more just the integration points around humans and technology. To be honest, I met this amazing person, Hutch. I can't wait to introduce you to her. Her name is Pauline, one of the really great cyber. She unfortunately had a back injury and actually walks with an exoskeleton. So it was awesome. It was cyborg and cyborg, wonder cyborg powers activate for the last couple of days at Hacker Halted. We've got amazing stuff out there. I'm doing, just short little news bites when I find interesting stuff. And our next big topic is going to be, we're going to actually try and take on some legislation, believe it or not. My brother is a type 1 diabetic and uses his mobile device to control his pump and his CGM. He had to go into a deal with getting some paperwork done at the courthouse. They would not allow him to take his mobile device into the courthouse because it was a recording device, but that's against the AMA. So I'm going to be having my brother, and we have a great guest coming in that I was hooked up with through the Cyber Wins CSI group, the Cognitive Security Institute. So we have a lawyer that understands medical law. So we're gonna break this down, and we're gonna see if we can't get some legislation updated for more people who are using that technical biological integration. So check us out.
Yeah, fascinating and very important topics. The one other thing that's worth calling out is in Vegas during Hacker Summer Camp a little over a month ago, we did do the initial premiere of I Am Machine, which is Lynn's new documentary, which just hit IMDb. It is and I know you're kind of shopping it around some of the other film festivals as well.
We are up to 38 film festival submissions, and we should find out whether or not we reached our first selection here this month. So we just did a screening of it last week at Hacker Halted. They had an amazing setup. We had about a couple of hundred people in the room, really, really well received. And I'm in some discussions. I might be in Arizona doing some screenings here in December. We got all kinds of stuff. Check out my website, www.i-am-machine.com, for information about where I'm going to be and where you can actually possibly get a chance to see this between now and when we actually do find our final release sometime in 2026.
So until next time, Cybercognition over and out.
Peace.
This has been another episode of the Cybercognition podcast. If you enjoyed this show, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And check out other shows on the Cyber Circus Network for the best in cyber entertainment and the greatest show on Earth.